All right. So, welcome to today's live session. My name is Danessa Gates, and today's session is why burnout gets missed while you're still functioning. And so, I always kind of start with an idea, something to think about. Have you ever had the experience where you're functioning, you're getting things done, you're handling what needs to be handled, and from the outside, nothing looks wrong. But internally, hi Maria, internally, something feels off, a little off. And it's not enough to stop, not enough to really change anything necessarily, just like it feels slightly heavier than it should be. Have you ever had an experience like that? And because you're still functioning, you don't question it. And really, that's where burnout kind of has a new definition, a new layer to look at, because most people think burnout is like really obvious. You feel exhausted, you're overwhelmed, you know something is wrong. But oftentimes, for high achieving performers, right, that's not the way it shows up for them because high performers are very good at one thing: maintaining output even when something internally has shifted. So the pattern here is that burnout doesn't start when you stop functioning. It starts when your system starts doing something very specific. Your system starts compensating to maintain your current level of performance. And the key detail is you still function while that's happening, right? Because
Mhm.
we don't see the signs. We let that internal shift happen without actually doing anything about it because it just seems like, oh, I'm just pushing through to the next
It's
thing.
right, Treatise.
And if you guys just everybody could go on mute for me too, thanks. I appreciate that. And two, so did somebody say something though? Did I miss? Okay. All right, cool. I thought I missed something. So, anyways, so you see that the key detail is that you can still function while all of this is happening. And that's why it can be harder to see. And so at this point, what people usually will ask me, well, so how would I not notice that happening? Well, because like what I'm explaining is nothing has broken yet. You're still functioning highly, you're still getting things done, showing up, meeting and exceeding expectations. So there's nothing externally that's forcing your attention to make you want to change, which means the shift is staying internal. And so the reframe here is that burnout doesn't begin with collapsing, right? It'd be nice to just have that really blatant sign, but that's not really how it begins. It begins with invisible compensation internally. Invisible compensation internally. And what that means is your system is doing more to produce the same output. And so, as an example, right, you're handling responsibilities, you're moving things forward, you're responding to people, all of those things are still happening. But you notice your patience is shorter, your body feels tighter, maybe even contracted, very tense, your recovery takes longer, and then small things start to feel more effortful. And then again, none of that stops you, right? Because it's just happening as it always does, but you start to notice these things but push through. And so none of it gets addressed. And that's how burnout accumulates. And so this is again where people will ask me, well, but if I'm still functioning, then why does it matter? Right? Because what's happening is functioning is masking what's happening underneath. There are layers to this, right? And by over functioning, continuing to push through, we're masking what's actually shifting underneath. And that happens because there's two different measurements here. One is you're measuring output, But what your system is tracking is the cost. And if you've ever heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, fantastic book if you've never read it, but it explains that perfectly just in one line, right? Your body is keeping the score and the cost of the moves you're making every day, even if you don't see it, even if you don't respond to it, right? And as you can see, right, those two measurements, output and cost, they're very separate, and they're going to start to separate even more as the burnout accumulates. So burnout doesn't come from what you're doing. It comes from how much your system is compensating while you're doing it. So high performers don't burn out because they can't handle pressure. They burn out because they stay inside or stay outside their performance window too long without returning to baseline or having any recovery window. And so again, high performers, they don't miss burnout because they're unaware. They miss it because of that one little thing that they're trained to prioritize. And that's prioritizing performance over internal feedback. And so instead of adjusting when something shifts, they maintain. And Joy, did you say something? I thought I caught you saying something. You're on mute. If you want to jump in, go ahead. I have questions and answers at the end too. We can do that then, whatever feels.
No, I'm listening to you and I agree. But I've also learned in my life how to kind of work with that. So as you're talking about it, I do see that not only in my own life, but people around me. But what I learned was just stop and take care of me.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Rest is huge. I do find too with a lot of my clients now, and maybe you can tell me how you feel about this, but a lot of clients feel like they can't actually rest, right? The rest isn't real, right? Because most people, and maybe you can attest to this, Joy, they go the whole week like I'm waiting for the 2 days on the weekend when I can rest, right? And does that rest ever actually happen? I don't know, right? Like for a lot of us, I don't know that it does because we go and we have life, we have stuff, things going on. And so that's one piece of it. The other piece is rest often with high performers, especially, feels uncomfortable. It feels wrong. It feels like they have to fill the space. So I think it's great that you found a way to just shut it down. And yeah, so there it sounds like you've understood a deeper layer. That's amazing.
But what you're saying is so true. The majority of people don't know how to do that. And
Yes.
then it leads to other medical issues, whether it's high blood pressure or even how they eat, and then being a diabetic as well. And so there's all these other different things that come to the surface, but it's actually because of the stress that they don't deal with that's attacking their body.
That's right. And like we said, right, the body is keeping that score. It doesn't just like you don't just get accumulate all this stuff and then it doesn't eventually show up. For me personally, Joy, it was high blood pressure. I got diagnosed with high blood pressure, and that was the thing that kind of was the catalyst for all of my work because it was like, how is this happening to me? I do all these things well. I'm a healthy person. All the labels I gave myself, but I wasn't giving myself any recovery windows. And so a lot of that comes with awareness, right? And
Yes.
starting to dig into those layers a little bit and see what's underneath. And so that's really good. And I think too, right? And instead of them adjusting when something shifts and just maintaining, then people will often be like, well, then what does that compensation actually translate to, right? It sounds like you've felt some of it, Joy.
Mhm.
And oftentimes what it looks like is needing more effort for the same task or feeling less recovered after the weekend or after rest or losing patience faster in your interactions, feeling like you have less internal space too. You can kind of just get that feeling. So again, though, everything's still getting done. So it's hard to be like, well, stop because you're still performing, everything's getting done, you're moving things forward. Nothing's really changed externally. And internally, it's often hard to catch for all the reasons I've said. So that's something to keep in mind too. And people will often ask too, like, okay, if I'm still performing, how do I know if this is actually a problem? Because From the
Hmm.
outside, again, everything is still working. But there's a distinction here. You're still performing, but that recovery window we're talking about is shrinking. And that means you finish a task, but you just rush to the next task and let it, instead of allowing yourself to reset. Or you take a break, but it doesn't actually restore you, something that we just alluded to. Or you sleep, but it doesn't feel like you're recovered the next day. Those are the signals that we often miss. And it's not that you can't perform, but it's that you can't recover the same way you used to.
Hmm.
So the practical shift here isn't stop functioning, right? Because even with rest, I'm sure you can attest you couldn't just stop functioning at all, right? You just had to find those little moments. But it's start noticing where functioning is costing more than it used to, because that's where that burnout starts. That's that gap. And
Yeah.
so, then you might ask, well, how do I actually recognize that earlier? And again, it's not like waiting for something big like me, like high blood pressure. Oh, maybe I should start looking at this. But you actually start to look for subtle increases in effort. The moment where things start to feel slightly heavier, or the body feels slightly tighter, or things feel slightly harder. All those little signals. And just to be clear, it's not an overload of hyper awareness, right? You're not trying to catch everything perfectly. What's happening is you're just starting to notice when your system has already shifted, even though your performance hasn't. So you're
Hmm.
noticing the internal shift, even if nothing's changed about the external output. And that gap, that's where burnout lives, and also where burnout recovery can live there too. And so,
No, no, go
uh,
ahead.
go ahead. Hmm?
No, I was going to tell you to go ahead, and then I'll make a
No, yeah,
comment.
no, for sure. And we're going to get to some Q&A here in just a sec. But again, like the goal isn't to avoid pressure, right? It's to shorten the time you stay dysregulated after the pressure. Because the pressure itself isn't the problem. It's the fact that we stay in the pressure. That's the problem. Because burnout doesn't feel dramatic when it starts, it feels functional. And then that stays that way until the cost of that functioning becomes too high to sustain. So if that resonated, I'd be curious, like, have any of you noticed things feeling slightly heavier in your life, even though you're still getting everything done, still functioning?
I've been one of those people who just goes, I'm done. I take care of me first.
Very good.
And that at 67, not a diabetic. Haven't had high blood pressure. I don't have one thing going on. But I cannot say that that made my life easier. I just chose to take care of me.
Hmm.
I then switched to even what I wanted to do. So I became a professor. Why? Okay, because it's not an 8 to 5 job. I don't have to be there at 8 and I don't have to stay until 5. I don't just get an hour lunch. I
Hmm.
realized that early on in my life that that wouldn't work for me.
Hmm.
In my
Hmm.
20s, I would use up all of my vacation time, sick time, because I would just take off. Like, I'm taking care of me.
Yeah.
And
So,
but that doesn't make it easy because then you deal with other things in life that if you're not going in line with what everybody wants you to do, then there's usually a fallout. Whether it's okay, when I go to another position, I'm not going to get the same kind of positive feedback because, like, well, she used most of her sick time. She used most of her vacation time. I sure did because when I was tired, I took that time off to take care of me because I'm not my best if I'm tired and stressed out.
that's
But we
right.
don't really work in a world that thinks that way. So we get
Right.
pushed to keep on this drive like, I got to do it, I got to do it, I got to do it because I will lose my job or they'll think I'm lazy. And so that's, I think, the hard part with employment is us trying to figure out how do we fit in to everybody else's view of how
That's
you
right.
should be living your life.
Now, and just I'm just curious too. So were you always like that, you said, or did it you okay, so you were always like that. That's really cool. And I think for a lot of people, they're not like that. And so you have a
Mm.
leg up. That's amazing. And I think what actually happens here, to your point, is for a lot of people, it's an identity shift to start to rest. It's a very deep layer that's being hit and changed there. And that changes the terrain of every relationship, every interaction. It all stems back to that. So, yes, I totally have seen this and it happened with me as well with this work. So I feel you on that because so many of my relationships, I was carrying the emotional load. I was the people pleaser. I was the one that took care of everything. And when I
Mhm.
stopped doing that, things changed. You know, some people adjust and some people don't.
Very
And
true.
it's, and but what did adjust was my self-trust. I started to trust who I was, and it didn't matter what their opinion was, right? Like it's you've got it now. Of course, if you've got things like losing your job, we're talking, we're talking levels here, right? Right?
Yeah.
Grades of emergency and urgency and stuff. But you see the point, right? It's things are going to change like that. And that's very common. But I'm really glad you found a way to find rest for yourself. That's amazing. Good for you.
Even though when I was younger, my parents didn't think that.
Right.
You have to do the same thing. What do you mean you left that job? Why this?
Yeah.
Why that?
We have a lot of societal pressure, a lot of
Mhm.
relational pressure, right? And
Yeah,
so it's not just work that's given us this pressure and this burnout. It
yeah,
actually seeps into every area of your life. It's got tentacles, you know?
it does.
So yeah, no, that's amazing stuff. And Maria, I don't know, did you have any like I saw you were looking, so I didn't know if you had any input you wanted to give.
I'm just not used to using
No
Zoom
worries, no
on
worries.
my phone, so I didn't know how to unmute myself or put myself on the frame. Yeah, I can certainly relate. Making sure as I've gotten older, I have done more for myself. I have
Mhm.
decided that I can't take care of anybody else if I'm, sick in bed or with a cold. I'm not, whatever it is that I'm feeling. So
Mhm.
it is something that I do take time for myself, being outside, just little things every day, cup of tea, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good because
Mm.
you do feel that stuff start to accumulate, but sometimes because we don't see it on the outside, we don't know it's happening
Hmm.
really, right? And then we've got all this other external pressures that are affecting us internally, our relationships, the people in our lives, our bosses, whomever it may be. Um, so yeah, that's really interesting that both of you have both have different kind of experiences with that. That's really, really interesting, but kind of see what the deeper layer is here. Tom, what about oh, Joy, please
Okay.
go. Please go, Joy.
Oh, what I was going to say shortly was what I found was that, like, I started becoming a social worker, but I did it my way. I had a degree in psychology, but what it allowed me to do was move around. So you can come in the office, but I'd sign out for the rest of the day.
Mm,
Now I'm going to see my appointments, but they're not going to take all day.
right.
But when I'm done, then I go back and clock out and I leave. So I had to find a job that I could do, that I could move the way I need to move to stay solid.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
they would always say, when we'd have the reviews, Joy, you do great work and everybody speaks so highly of you, but you don't have any sick leave and you don't have any vacation time. No, because I would take it
Right.
so
As
that
you
I
should. You
could
earned
do.
it.
Yes. And that's so I could do a good job, because
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do my best if I'm just running around for 8 hours. So I realized that early on, so chose a profession that allowed me to have flexibility, sign out and go do what I do. And as long as everybody else got what they needed, nobody cared. That
So
I moved on. Go ahead.
no, I'm just curious. So do you feel like with your rest now, and since you've always kind of been that person, has it felt more like rest as you've aged? Like, was it harder for it to feel like rest even though you chose it from the beginning? And then as you aged, it's like now it actually feels like recovery? Or was it always the same feeling?
It was always the same feeling.
That is really interesting.
I just couldn't do it. I could not go somewhere at 8 o'clock and sit there till 5. because it didn't take that long to do the work.
I love you pushing on the social norms here, lady. I love it. I really do. I wish I would have done more of that, to be honest.
But I had to
That's
figure out
very cool.
something else.
It sounds like you have a really strong hold on things. So do you see any type of burnout in your life then? Or do you feel like you got it figured out?
I have not felt burnout. And I've honestly thought about that recently when I realized that I'm healthy at 67, that I don't have doctor's appointments because I don't have anything that needs to be treated. That's what made me go like, oh, what I was doing was working and
Mm-hmm.
keeping me healthy.
Yeah.
So I still run, I still walk, I still lift weights, I still do those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it's a challenge because I do want to go back to work, but I'm now trying to figure out how do I get back in the niche that I like, but be able to move in the way I need to move that will keep me healthy.
That is a very real question. It's a very valid question. And
And it's a little harder now.
my next question to you is, would you be my poster child? Like, could I take a picture of you and put you, here's my outcomes, picture of joy. Like, we don't need to say anymore. No, I'm just kidding. But no, everything
No.
you've done, I mean, just the way you're wired, it sounds like it's been a really strong way for you to operate. And I love that you're taking that approach, even coming back into any type of work for yourself. That's really cool, Joy. Good for you.
Thank you. And it didn't come with a plan. I just realized that I'm not good at, if you tell me to come at 8 and stay till 5, to me, then that becomes my job. How do I get there at 8 and stay until 5?
Right.
But then you're not productive because you're just, I need to be here at 8 and I need to leave by 5.
You're like, I'll work as long as the work needs to be done and then I'm done, basically, right? Like, I'm going to shape my day in that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then I realized that I would be done with what I needed to do in the first 3 hours of the day. And what, I have to sit here now?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Hey, let me walk around and see who I can talk to. I'll meander down this hallway. Let's see who's there. And then I realized I didn't want to live that way.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, I've had 8 hours, but really it only took 3 hours to do what I needed to do. And now I'm just in prison.
Yep. I understand. And I mean, and you also didn't create the internal prison. Let's be real here, right? I mean, honestly. So something that's really good to consider. That's awesome. Good for you. Good for you. Happy to hear stories like that. Maria or Tom, anything else you all wanted to add?
I'm really glad they were talking because you didn't have the bullseye on me. I mean, no, I'm only kidding. No, I think back in times in my life when I got a little too far one-sided and my body was telling me that I was overstressed and overtaxed, but I wasn't recognizing it. And it would manifest in back problems. And I didn't even realize it. I haven't been to the chiropractor and I can't remember when. So I've gotten to the point where I'm managing my schedule better. And like Joy, I know where my peak times of the day are, and I also know where I'm not very strong. And so I don't schedule meetings if I can avoid it during off-peak times.
Yeah,
Try to
that's amazing. So and look how your body responded.
Yeah, it did.
And Joy's too, right? Like, it's
But
just,
I'm not perfect. I mean, I have my
sure.
moments, and it's about being triggered. In fact, I've got a graph over here that actually helps me recognize when I dip below the line, and the line that differentiates between positive and negative on that. It kind of helps me recognize when we get triggered when we're down into the negative, how to get up into the positive.
Yep. And that's actually a lot of what I do in my own coaching too with my clients is like, what can we do to interrupt this pattern and get you back to some regulation? And it can be the simplest of things, putting your hand on your chest, taking a breath, walking outside for a minute, whatever it may be. There's very small things we can do. And the whole point is about that little moment of interruption where it's like, I'm not just going to push through the next thing. the awareness part is the first piece. Like, oh, I can see myself pushing through, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, maybe you interrupt it, maybe you don't, and then we work from there, right? And you
Yeah.
start adding those little interrupters, and it looks like, sounds like you guys have done that, which is just so smart because especially as we age, right? Like we want to have more control over our longevity. And this for me personally, this work is the thing that's I'm 100% confident is doing it for me because I was on the wrong trajectory, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So I know that this is what I needed to do.
Yeah. I'm looking at things now that are even more remote because I want to get away from my desk.
Yeah.
So this is my office space in my home, but I still put a time on that.
Yeah. Smart.
And I walk.
Yeah.
Everyone knows I'm the walker in the community. Yep. And I might go out and walk a couple of miles 3 or 4 times a day.
Yep.
And it just kind of keeps me and
Yes.
get back to work.
Yep.
So we have to put ourselves first, but we do need to find out what works for us.
Right.
And I need
Joy, I
to
have the
get
same.
up and walk.
Yeah, I have the same issue, Joy. I actually have it on my iWatch to remind me every 40 minutes to get up, because otherwise I'll forget.
And oh, sorry, yeah, no, that's so smart because like if we don't, you just find a reason to keep sitting. It just always happens that way, right? Like, well, just this one more thing, and then and then that, and then and so the timer thing is super smart. Yeah, I love all of that. That this is very cool examples of the things you guys have chosen. I hope this resonated with you today. And just so you know, next week, so I'm doing these 10 to 15 minute sessions each week on Wednesdays. And so next week I'm going to go a little layer deeper where, people don't just miss burnout, but they actually misread their own signals. So if this resonated with you today, that might be a cool one for you guys to jump into next week. I can put you on the invite list. I don't know if you guys are both Tom, are these both your friends?
They are.
Okay,
They're
cool.
actually business associates of mine.
Excellent. So I was just going to make sure, ladies, I'm going to take your names down. And do you mind if I connect with you on LinkedIn?
Of course.
I'll send you guys a connection request. Okay, awesome. Well, this was awesome, ladies. I know we've only got and Tom, sorry. Ladies and Tom.
That's
No,
all right.
but I
I'm getting
appreciate
stressed out over it.
All right. Well, you guys are amazing today, and maybe I'll see you next week. And if you have anything else you want to chit chat with me about, any discoveries or anything that resonates afterwards, because I know this kind of sits with you for a while, DM me. I always love to chat about this stuff. It fascinates me. So, all right, guys. Well, you have an awesome day. I'll have the replay out on LinkedIn later today, too.
Great. Thank
all right,
you.
guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.